Okay, today I'm at Phantom House Stables in Newmarket with Luiz Cunha. Luiz,
Simon,
thanks very much for agreeing to talk to us today. Now,
pleasure.
the reason we're speaking today, you've just launched Pedigree To Win, which is a unique sort of aid to help punters beat the bookies, but based around breeding and not form. How does that work?
Basically, Simon, is I look at another race program, race by race, and I will look at the pedigrees of all the horses in a race. Let's take it from that point of view. Is I look at a specific race, and I'll look at the breeding, and I will note which ones are the right ones, in that race for that specific distance. And I don't look at who the trainer is, who the jockey is, where the horse is drawn, what weight it's carrying, what course it's running in, or the going. I'll look at it only purely from the breeding point of view, and then I will look at that and say, right, these two, and that's regardless of betting, these two horses are the best bred horses in the race. So look for your winner to probably come from there, and then I will give another 3, if it's a big field, 4 value place bets which are, I think are well bred in the race and could possibly win or place. I mean, a value place bet means it could run in the first 3 or 4, but they often win as well. I then give the punter that how can I call it, summary of the 2 best bred horses and the next 3 best bred horses for them to make make their own selections. What people forget is I'm not trying to find the first, second, third. I'm trying to give you the best bred horses in the race. But it's quite amazing that in 60 to 80% of the time, your 1, 2, 3 will be from those 5 horses. And but sometimes the favourite, I might have not have selected the first, second, third favourites. One of them might run in between, but I'm not trying to pick the favourites. I'm trying to show you which are the best bred horses in the race for you to make your selections. You can then make up your own mind by looking at that field and looking at what I'm saying, and then structure your own bets, to put it that way.
Okay, now this is the culmination of 45 years worth of work and fascination. I mean, do you know these pedigrees? Do you have on a computer, or do you have to manually sort of go through each race? How does it work?
I have studied breeding since I think I was 18. It was a fascination with me, and I started to look into pedigrees from that time. I've read extensively. I have researched. I've travelled the world. I've even gone to Federico Tessio's birthplace to go and just be there and see where all these roots come from. So I've done extensive research, and then I also started breeding horses myself from a fairly young age. I think I was 21 or 22 when I bought my first broodmare, because I thought I could start seeing the pictures at a very early age, but I thought I could start seeing what's going on here and why these things run the way they do, and why they sprint and why they stay. And I went and I bought my first mare and then my second mare, and these mares produced me winners right from the start. And I thought, hang on, I bought another mare, she produced me a Group 1 winner. And it was like, hang on, I knew from an early age that I'm reading it right, but there was still lots and lots and lots to learn, and I never stopped, because that's when I thought to myself, you need to know what's going on. And I thought at that stage that I could look at a broodmare pedigree and know what to buy, but I didn't really understand how the stallion worked. So that whole picture only came to me 20 years later, but I think it'll come from the questions. We'll wait. We'll move on and see if you've got further questions. I'll try and delve more into that.
Yeah, no, we're talking about South Africa 45 years ago when you first started. I mean, these days you can just go on the internet and find out anything you need to know at a touch of a button. How did you do your research back in those days?
Those days, like I said, reading, watching, observing, trying to get my hands onto any material I could, even videos in those days, videos that were the Coolmore Stallion videos, videos and books. I think I've read every single book that is possible to read, and just getting knowledge of slowly you begin to see the picture, and the picture comes together, and the picture comes together, and then later on, when I even started doing my own schematic diagrams of where the stallion lines are coming from and where they're going, and then I started doing more research, and I discovered that people had already done some of these things. I got those and incorporated those into my own, and then you start seeing the whole picture. And when you're looking at a pedigree, it's like a picture to you. You can see exactly where it comes from within 1 or 2 seconds. I can look at a pedigree and I know all about that pedigree immediately. But that, as I said, it started from the beginning, right through time. You doing a lot of research, a lot of reading, and and I can tell you that I don't spend, even today, less than 2 to 3 hours a day on pedigrees. I'm just fascinated. If I see something comes on Twitter, that a horse has won a big race in Australia, I immediately go on to look at it. Yes, I can. Yes, that's obvious. I can see why. So I'm forever looking, testing, researching, measuring myself, and like I said, then I started to buy my own mares and buying race horses. But just a simple example. Before we came here, before we came to England, Dylan and I went to a sale, and I said to him, "What are you looking for? A nice cheap run around, probably in pounds, cost £1,000." I said, "Buy this horse, we'll get a lot of fun out of him." We bought him, and when he, I think he won a grade 2. We'd already left, but we sold him on. But he immediately won. I think he won second time out, and then he won again, and then he placed in a group 2, and then we sold it because we came here. But that value you can find when you've got this knowledge, because you can recognize it immediately. You can see it. Even when I'm looking at the catalogs, for example, and I'll be sitting at a sale, and that's why I've offered my service, which I think we'll talk about later, is because I can sit in the ring and I can see people bidding and buying horses sometimes for £500,000, and I, looking at this, and I know that I can say with I can see with certainty, not say, I can see with certainty that this horse may win a race, and I so wish I could get out there and give that service to people, because I've got that product in my head, now to be able to do that, to read these pedigrees and give proper advice.
So your eye for a horse is as good as your knowledge of the breeding lines?
Absolutely. I'll look at it first of all from the breeding point of view, and I'll see something on breeding, and then we'll look at go and look at the conformation of horse, and now you obviously need to marry those two.
Yeah. Now, when you were breeding originally, as a young man, were you breeding them to race yourself, or were you selling them?
When I first started, obviously being very naive, I thought to myself, I want to become a big breeder. But I started off, I didn't necessarily have the funds to do it. So I went in blindly thinking, I can do this, I can see everything, but it takes a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of commitment. So I just carried on the breeding side for myself, more of an experiment to keep valid, because at that stage I had my accounting trade, which I ran my own accounting company. So I was very, very, very involved with that, because I was back in South Africa, I was a recovery specialist. So I went into companies and local authorities that were in crisis and or bankrupt, and I used to go in and recover these local authorities in a very short period. They used to give me 6 months to implement a recovery program, and I used to recover them. So I was very busy with that. Some days that took all of my attention, but the first call was always my pedigrees. Even if I went home after work, I'd go back to thinking what happened in the world today, and I would go and look and follow it up and just keep valid.
Okay, was your interest in pedigrees originally because you saw that there was potential to make money, or was it purely organic and you just were fascinated by it?
Purely fascination. Never. And it was never about money. It was the fascination with the champions of the breed and the great stallions, and what makes these champions. If you, when you're a young person, and I think most young people are like that today, they go racing to see a champion, and your tendencies at the course always much more when you've got a great horse running. Those horses fascinate you because they're different. Why are they different? What makes them different? And often those horses are not the most expensive horses to buy. They just inherently are more champions, and that's what drew me.
Okay, now people say that the recent form, this pure form study, is the most important. Is that the same with breeding? I mean, if you go back far enough, you're all going to have the same. There's a lot of the breedings interconnects going back the generation. So how important is the deeper branches of the pedigree?
When you're looking at a pedigree, I think there's a few ways to answer that question. But when you're looking at a pedigree, pedigree will appear to you as being alive and in balance. It'll come to you as sort of a picture. You will look at the stallion and the mare. Does that stallion suit that mare? You can sometimes look at a pedigree and it can be beautifully bred, but it's a nothingness pedigree. It's got no meaning. There's no purpose. I can look at a pedigree and see what the breeder intended doing. And you can say, oh, intended doing, he's made a mistake, yeah? Or that's the way that I see pedigrees. And if you get, if you understand the lines, where they should be, what line should be where, and then balance. Where must the balance be? I'll talk about that in depth, I think, in later on, because it's a thing on its own. But you need to see that, the whole picture of the pedigree, and if it's in balance, and the power in the pedigree is in the right place, that is where a lot of the keys lie. Is right there. Coming to form is important, but if you're reading on form only, you're not going to understand, or you're not going to see the whole picture. If I try and give you an example, back in South Africa there was a great sprinter known as Extra Cover. He's a tremendous sprinter. He won as a 3-year-old. He won the big races and big prizes because nobody understood what was going on with this horse. And then they thought, that he must be a miler. He must get at least a mile. And they tried him at a mile and he failed. They said, no, you must get a mile. If you look at his pedigree, and they put him in a very weak race one day and he won a mile. So they thought, oh, he can see a mile. Then they entered him in the classic in a mile. No. Pedigree will always dominate because it is, as I said in my preamble, it is the foundation of the horse. He will run off that pedigree. What the breeders intended to do there is how that horse will run. Just to, a very interesting thing that I don't want to forget to tell you as a person that I can see is very interested in racehorses and breeding. I read pedigrees all over the world, as Hong Kong, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, in America. I don't know all the stallions all over the world, but I know their lines, where they come from. They all come from the same lines. So when I'm reading pedigrees, for example, if I pick up a card and I'm doing Hong Kong, for example, those pedigrees are mostly from New Zealand, Australia, and some from Japan. But most people would have to go and research those stallions, because who are these stallions with these funny names? And I just look at the first two parents, and I know, okay, this is this and this is that, and I know where it comes from, and I can then read the pedigree straight away.